The baby monitor crackled with static at 3:47 a.m., pulling me from the thin sleep I'd managed to find on the narrow cot in the servants' quarters. My eyes burned as I forced them open, the familiar weight of exhaustion settling into my bones like an old friend. 6 months of working in Vincent Moretti's estate, and I still wasn't used to the silence that hung over this place, thick and suffocating, like the velvet curtains that blocked out every sliver of moonlight. I pushed myself upright, my joints protesting. 23 years old, and I felt ancient. The cold floor bit into my bare feet as I padded across the room, reaching for the thin cardigan draped over the chair. Through the small window, I could see the manicured garden stretching endlessly into darkness, bordered by walls too high to see over. Beautiful prison, I thought, not for the first time. The cry came again, not from the monitor, but filtering through the walls themselves. Soft, whimpering. My heart clenched. I moved quickly through the dimly lit hallways, my footsteps silent on marble floors that probably cost more than everything I'd ever owned combined. Sconces lined the walls at intervals, casting long shadows that seemed to move and breathe. I'd learned to navigate this maze in the dark, learned which floorboards creaked, which turns led where, survival skills for the invisible. That's what I was here. Invisible. Just another face in the rotation of staff who kept Vincent Moretti's world running smoothly while he conducted business I knew better than to ask about. The kind of business that required armed men at every entrance, cameras in every corner, and NDAs thick enough to choke on. The nursery door stood slightly ajar, warm light spilling into the corridor. I slipped inside, and the familiar scent hit me, baby powder, lavender, and something else. Something expensive that clung to everything in this house. Wealth, power, danger. Shh, sweet girl, I whispered, approaching the ornate crib that looked like it belonged in a palace. I'm here. Julia's tiny face was scrunched up, red and wet with tears. 4 months old, and already she'd learned that crying in this house brought swift attention, but only from me. Her mother had died giving birth to her, and Vincent was a ghost. A shadow that moved through rooms but never stayed. I'd seen him exactly 4 times in 6 months, each encounter brief enough to leave me wondering if I'd imagined the intensity of his dark eyes, the sharp line of his jaw, the way the air seemed to change when he entered a space. I lifted Julia carefully, her small body fitting perfectly against my chest. Her crying quieted immediately, replaced by small hiccuping breaths that broke my heart. I know, I murmured, swaying gently. I know, baby. The world's scary when you're alone. I knew that feeling intimately. 3 years since I'd left my mother's apartment in Queens with nothing but a backpack and determination. 3 years of invisible jobs for invisible girls, cleaning houses, watching children, existing in the margins of other people's lives. When the agency had offered me this position, I'd almost said no. The money was too good. The situation too strange. A widowed single father who needed a live-in nanny but was never home. But the money. God. The money. Enough to finally pay off my mother's medical bills. Enough to maybe, someday, stop feeling like I was drowning. I settled into the rocking chair, positioned perfectly to face the window overlooking the gardens. Julia's eyes were already drooping, her tiny fist clutching my finger with surprising strength. Let me tell you a story, I whispered, even though I knew she couldn't understand, but I told her anyway. The same story I told her every night when the loneliness got too heavy. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who dreamed of being seen. My voice was soft, barely above a breath. I sang too. Old lullabies my grandmother had taught me before she died, Portuguese words that tasted like home and heartbreak. Julia's breathing deepened, her small chest rising and falling in the peaceful rhythm of sleep. But I didn't move. I never moved right away. These hours between midnight and dawn were the only time I felt like I could breathe in this house. The only time the weight of invisible eyes didn't press down on me. I didn't know about the camera. I didn't know that in a penthouse office across the city, Vincent Moretti sat in his leather chair, surrounded by monitors and men with guns, watching a feed he'd installed the day I was hired. Insurance, he'd told himself. Security. He couldn't trust anyone, not after Elena's family had proven that blood meant nothing when money was involved. I didn't know that for 6 months. He'd watched me every night. Watched me comfort his daughter with a tenderness that made something crack in his chest. Watched me sing in a language he understood but hadn't heard since his own grandmother died. Watched me hold Julia like she was precious when he couldn't even look at her without seeing Elena's face and feeling the betrayal all over again. I didn't know that tonight was different. That tonight, something in my voice, some crack of my own loneliness, had finally broken through the ice he'd wrapped around himself. All I knew was that Julia was sleeping peacefully, and for this moment, in this quiet darkness, we were both safe. I finally stood, moving carefully to place her back in the crib. She stirred but didn't wake, her small mouth forming shapes around invisible dreams. I adjusted her blanket, my fingers lingering on the soft fabric. "Sweet dreams, little one," I whispered. I turned toward the door and froze. A man stood in the doorway. Backlit by the corridor, his face was in shadow, but I recognized the stance immediately. Broad shoulders, perfectly tailored suit even at 4 a.m, and an absolute stillness that radiated danger. Vincent Moretti. My heart stopped, then lurched into a gallop. In 6 months, he'd never come to the nursery, never checked on Julia, never acknowledged my existence beyond the monthly salary that appeared in my account like clockwork. "Mr. Moretti," I breathed, my voice catching. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." She was crying, and "How long?" His voice was quiet, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. A voice used to being obeyed without having to be raised. I blinked, confused. "How long? How long have you been singing to her?" The question stunned me into silence. Behind him, I could see the shadow of another man. Security. Always security. They were everywhere in this house, silent sentinels who saw everything and said nothing. Since the first night," I admitted. My hands were shaking. I clasped them behind my back, trying to hide it. "She cries if I don't. The singing helps her sleep." He stepped into the room, and the light finally caught his face. I'd forgotten how striking he was. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that looked black in the dim light, and a mouth set in a hard line that suggested smiling was a foreign concept. But it was the intensity in his gaze that made my breath catch, like he was looking at me, truly looking, for the first time. "Portuguese," he said. Not a question. "My grandmother." I stopped, unsure why I was explaining. "It's what she sang to me." Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. He moved closer, and I instinctively stepped back until my legs hit the rocking chair. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "Don't be afraid," he said, which was possibly the most ridiculous thing anyone had ever said to me. I was a poor girl from Queens, standing in a mobster's nursery at 4 a.m, and he was telling me not to be afraid. He stopped a few feet away, his attention shifting to the crib. For a long moment, he just stared at his daughter. In the dim light, I saw something raw cross his face. Pain, maybe, or regret. Then it was gone, locked away behind the cold mask. "She looks like her mother," he said finally. I didn't know what to say to that. Everyone knew Elena Moretti had died in childbirth. Everyone knew Vincent had loved her. And everyone knew better than to mention her name. "She has your eyes," I said quietly, before I could stop myself. His gaze snapped to mine, sharp and assessing. I wanted to look away, but couldn't. There was something magnetic about him, something that pulled even as it terrified. "You're not afraid to speak your mind. I probably should be," I admitted. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "Probably." Silence stretched between us, heavy with things unsaid. Outside, I heard the crunch of gravel, more security making their rounds. This house never slept, never let its guard down. "Tomorrow," he said finally. "I want you to bring her to my office at 3 p.m. My eyes widened. "Your office? But 3 p.m., Miss Chen." He turned toward the door, then paused. "And Maya?" He'd never used my first name before, never acknowledged he even knew it. "Yes?" "Thank you for taking care of her." Then he was gone, his shadow disappearing down the corridor, leaving me standing in the nursery with my heart racing and the distinct feeling that something had just shifted, something that couldn't be unshifted. I looked down at Julia, still sleeping peacefully, unaware that her father had finally seen her. Finally seen us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a terrible, irreversible mistake. I didn't sleep after he left. How could I? I lay on my narrow cot, staring at the ceiling as dawn crept through the window, painting everything in shades of gray and gold. My mind kept replaying the moment. His voice in the darkness, the way he'd looked at Julia, the unexpected gentleness in his tone when he'd thanked me. Vincent Moretti didn't thank people. From what I'd gathered in whispered conversations between the household staff, he commanded them, rewarded them sometimes, destroyed them when they disappointed him. But gratitude? That seemed as foreign to him as weakness. By 7 a.m., I was already dressed and moving through my morning routine on autopilot. I changed Julia, fed her the bottle I'd prepared, and tried to ignore the knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. 3 p.m. His office. Why? "You look like you've seen a ghost," Rosa said when I brought Julia down to the kitchen for my own breakfast. Rosa was the head housekeeper, 50-something and sharp-eyed, the only person in this house who'd shown me anything resembling kindness when I arrived. "Didn't sleep well," I said, which wasn't a lie. She poured me coffee without asking, the good kind that smelled like heaven and probably cost more per pound than I made in a week. "The boss came home last night, 3 a.m. Never seen him come straight to the house after a meeting before. Usually goes to the penthouse." I kept my expression neutral, but my hands trembled slightly as I accepted the cup. "Did he?" Rosa's knowing eyes met mine. "Marco saw him heading toward the nursery wing. Said he stayed up there for 20 minutes. She paused, adding sugar to her own coffee with deliberate slowness. "In 6 months, he hasn't set foot in that wing once." I took a sip, letting the heat burn my tongue. Maybe he wanted to check on Julia. Maybe. But Rosa's tone suggested she didn't believe in maybes. "Be careful, Maya. Men like Vincent Moretti, they don't do anything without a reason. And their reasons aren't usually good for people like us." Her words echoed in my head as the morning stretched on. I kept to my routine, playtime with Julia on the nursery floor, tummy time on the expensive playmat, walks through the gardens under the watchful eyes of security. But everything felt different now, charged with an energy I couldn't name. At 2:30, I dressed Julia in one of her nicer outfits, a soft pink dress with delicate embroidery that had probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. My own clothes were simple, black pants, a cream blouse, nothing that would draw attention. Invisible, remember? That's how I survived in this world. But as I made my way toward Vincent's office in the East Wing, Julia nestled in my arms. I couldn't shake the feeling that invisible was no longer an option. 2 men stood outside the office doors, not the usual rotating security, but ones I recognized. Luca and Marco, Vincent's personal detail. They looked like they could break me in half without breaking a sweat, all sharp suits and sharper eyes. "Miss Chen," Luca said, his voice surprisingly polite. "He's expecting you." The doors opened, and I stepped into a room that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the estate, flooding the space with afternoon light. Dark wood, leather, and the scent of expensive cologne mixed with old books. But it was the man behind the massive desk who commanded attention. Vincent stood as I entered, and I realized this was the first time I'd seen him in full daylight. He was younger than I'd thought, maybe 32, 33. But his eyes were older, eyes that had seen things I couldn't imagine. He wore a black suit that fit like it had been sewn onto his body, a white shirt open at the collar, and no tie. Even relaxed, he looked dangerous. "Maya." My name and his voice did something strange to my pulse. "Come in. Close the door." I hesitated, and his expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Luca and Marco are right outside. You're safe." Safe was relative in this house, but I did as he asked. The door clicked shut with a finality that made my stomach clench. "Sit." He gestured to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. I sat carefully, adjusting Julia in my arms. She was awake now, her dark eyes, so like her father's, taking in the room with infant curiosity. Vincent came around the desk, and I tensed involuntarily. But he didn't approach me. Instead, he moved to the windows, his back to us, his hands in his pockets. The posture of a man carrying weight I couldn't see. "How much do you know about my wife?" he asked finally. The question caught me off guard. Only what the staff has mentioned, that she died during childbirth. That you loved her. I did. His voice was flat, emotionless. For 10 years, Elena was my everything. We grew up together, her family and mine, intertwined by blood and business. I thought I knew her better than I knew myself. He turned, and the look on his face made my breath catch. Pain, yes, but something darker beneath it, betrayal. 3 days before she died, I discovered she'd been having an affair with my cousin, Marco. Not the Marco outside, the other one. The one I trusted with my life. His laugh was bitter, sharp enough to cut. They'd been together for 2 years. Planning to run, take half my assets, destroy everything I'd built. She was going to use the baby as leverage. My own daughter, a bargaining chip. I held Julia tighter, my heart breaking for the innocent child in my arms, who would grow up with this story as her legacy. I confronted her the night she went into labor, he continued, his voice dropping lower. The stress, the argument. The doctors said it contributed to the complications. She hemorrhaged. Marco tried to run after she died. He didn't make it to the airport. The implication hung in the air. I didn't ask what happened to Marco. I didn't want to know. "Why are you telling me this?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. Vincent crossed the room then, moving with a predator's grace, and crouched in front of my chair. This close. I could see the fine lines around his eyes, the shadow of stubble on his jaw, the way his throat worked as he swallowed. "Because I haven't been able to look at her," he said, his eyes finally moving to Julia. "Every time I try, I see Elena. I see the betrayal. I see everything I lost." His hand lifted, hesitant, and brushed against Julia's tiny foot. She kicked, and something cracked in his expression. "But last night, I watched you with her. I heard you singing, saw the way you held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, and I realized, she is." Tears pricked my eyes. "She's innocent in all this. I know." His hand curled into a fist, then relaxed. "I've been punishing her for her mother's sins, and in doing so I've become exactly what I swore I'd never be. My father. Cold, distant, unable to love the people who need me most." He stood abruptly, moving back to the window as if he couldn't handle the proximity. "I've watched you every night for 6 months, Maya. The camera in the nursery, my blood ran cold." "You've been watching me?" "For security," he said quickly. "Initially. But then..." He ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture so human it startled me. "Then it became about watching someone be the parent I couldn't be, watching you love my daughter when I was too broken to try." The confession hung between us, raw and honest in a way I suspected Vincent Moretti rarely allowed himself to be. "What do you want from me?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. He turned, and the intensity in his gaze pinned me to the chair. "I want you to teach me how to be her father, how to look at her without seeing ghosts. How to..." He stopped, jaw clenching. "How to be human again." The vulnerability in his words shattered something in my chest. This man, who commanded an empire built on fear and power, was asking me, a nobody from Queens, to teach him how to love his own daughter. "I don't know if I can do that," I admitted. "You're already doing it." He moved closer again, and this time I didn't flinch. "Every night you show her what love looks like. Patience, tenderness. You make her feel safe in a house built on violence." His hand reached out, not toward Julia, but toward me. His fingers brushed my cheek, so gently I almost thought I'd imagined it. "You make me believe it's possible to feel something other than rage and grief." My breath caught. This was dangerous territory, dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with his business, and everything to do with the way my heart was suddenly racing. "Mr. Moretti." "Vincent," he corrected. "When it's just us, call me Vincent." "Vincent," I repeated, tasting his name. "This, whatever this is, I'm just the nanny. I can't..." "You're not just anything." His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. "Not anymore. Not after I've watched you sacrifice your sleep, your comfort, your own needs, For a child who isn't yours, not after I've seen you be more of a mother to Julia than Elena ever intended to be. That's not fair to her memory, I said. But my voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? His eyes flashed. She was ready to abandon our daughter for money and a man who meant nothing. You've stayed through every sleepless night, every moment of thankless work, because you have a heart she never possessed. Julia chose that moment to whimper, and instinctively I began to sway, soothing her with the motion she knew meant comfort. Vincent watched, and something in his expression shifted, softened. "Let me try," he said suddenly. "Let me hold her." My arms tightened protectively. "Are you sure?" "No." His honesty was disarming. "But I need to. Please." Slowly, carefully, I stood and moved toward him. He looked terrified, this man who faced down rival families and federal agents without blinking. His arms came up awkwardly, and I guided his hands into position, showing him how to support her head, how to hold her securely against his chest. Julia looked up at her father with curious eyes, and Vincent looked down at his daughter like he was seeing her for the first time. Maybe he was. "She's so small," he whispered. "She'll grow," I said softly. "And she needs her father to be there when she does." His eyes met mine over Julia's head, and the intensity there made my knees weak. "Will you stay? Will you help me do this right?" It wasn't just about the nanny position anymore. We both knew it. This was something bigger, more complicated, more dangerous than a simple employment arrangement. I should have said no, should have recognized the warning signs, the obsessive watching, the isolated estate, the violent world he lived in, should have remembered Rosa's warning about men like Vincent Moretti. But when I looked at Julia, peaceful in her father's arms for the first time, and saw the hope warring with fear in Vincent's eyes, I couldn't walk away. "Yes," I whispered, "I'll stay." The smile that crossed his face was small, barely there, but it transformed him, made him look younger, almost vulnerable. "Thank you, Maya." He looked back down at Julia, his large hand cradling her tiny head with unexpected gentleness. "I promise you won't regret this." But as I watched them together, father and daughter finally beginning to heal, I couldn't shake Rosa's words from my mind. Men like Vincent Moretti don't do anything without a reason, and I was terrified to discover what his reason truly was. The days that followed blurred together in a strange, surreal pattern that felt like living in two different worlds simultaneously. By day, Vincent was still the ghost, absent for hours, sometimes days, conducting business I knew better than to ask about. But the evenings belonged to us. He started coming to the nursery every night at 8 p.m., like clockwork. The first few times he'd stood awkwardly in the doorway, watching as I bathed Julia, changed her, prepared her for bed, but slowly, tentatively, he began to participate. His large, dangerous hands I'd seen clenched into fists, hands that had undoubtedly done terrible things, learned to be gentle with baby soap and soft towels. "Like this?" he'd ask, his voice uncertain in a way that made my chest ache. "Perfect," I'd whisper back, guiding his hands, teaching him the small rituals that made up a baby's world. It was during these quiet hours that I began to see beneath the armor. Vincent without the cold mask was different, still intense, still carrying that edge of danger, but softer somehow. He'd tell me stories about his childhood as we worked together, memories of his grandmother who'd raised him after his mother died. The same grandmother who'd sung Portuguese lullabies, who'd taught him that strength and tenderness weren't mutually exclusive. "She'd like you," he said one night, 3 weeks after that first meeting in his office. We were in the nursery, Julia sleeping peacefully in the crib between us. "She'd say you have alma forte, a strong soul." I smiled despite myself. My grandmother used to say the same thing, usually right before telling me I was too stubborn for my own good. His laugh was quiet, rusty from disuse, but genuine. Stubbornness can be a virtue. In my world, it's often the only thing that keeps you alive. His world, the reminder of who he was, what he was, sent a chill through me. I'd been living in this bubble, letting myself forget that beyond these walls, Vincent Moretti was a man people feared. A man who dealt in violence and control. As if reading my thoughts, his expression shuddered slightly. "You've never asked what I do, Maya. Why not?" I kept my eyes on Julia, watching the rise and fall of her small chest. Because I'm not sure I want to know. And because it doesn't change what needs to be done here. Julia needs her father, regardless of how he makes his living. "You're afraid of me." It wasn't a question. "Sometimes," I admitted, finally meeting his gaze. "But not in the way you think. I'm not afraid you'll hurt me physically. I'm afraid of—" I trailed off, unsure how to articulate the complicated tangle of emotions he stirred in me. "Of what?" He moved closer, and the air between us charged with something electric. "Of how you make me feel," I whispered. "Like I matter. Like I'm visible. I've spent 3 years being invisible, Vincent. It's safer that way." His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "You could never be invisible to me. From the first moment I saw you on that camera feed, holding my daughter like she was yours, singing to her in the darkness, you became the only thing I could see clearly." My breath caught. We were standing too close, the nursery suddenly feeling too small, too warm. His eyes dropped to my mouth, and I knew that if I didn't step back now, everything would change. But I didn't step back. The kiss, when it came, was soft, questioning. His lips barely brushed mine, giving me every opportunity to pull away. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned in, my hand coming up to rest against his chest, feeling his heart race beneath my palm. When we finally broke apart, his forehead rested against mine, both of us breathing hard. "This is a mistake," I whispered. "Probably the biggest one I've ever made." He agreed. "And I've made many." But neither of us moved away. The sound of footsteps in the corridor broke the spell. Vincent stepped back immediately, his expression shifting back to the cold mask I'd come to recognize as his public face. Marco appeared in the doorway, his face carefully neutral. "Boss, we have a situation. The Calabrese family—" "I'll be right there." Vincent's voice was clipped, professional. He looked at me one more time, something heated and possessive in his gaze. "We'll talk about this later." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with Julia and the ghost of his touch on my lips. I didn't see him for 3 days after that. 3 days during which I questioned everything. My judgment, my sanity, my rapidly deteriorating sense of self-preservation. Rosa watched me with knowing eyes but said nothing, which somehow made it worse. When Vincent finally returned, it was 2 a.m., and I was in the kitchen making tea, unable to sleep. I heard him before I saw him. The quiet footsteps, the whispered exchange with security. Then he was there, filling the doorway, still in his suit, but with his tie loosened and blood on his collar. My sharp intake of breath made him look down, notice what I'd seen. "It's not mine," he said flatly. "Before you ask." I set down my mug with trembling hands. "Should I ask whose it is?" "No." He moved into the kitchen, heading straight for the whiskey cabinet. "You should probably run as far from me as possible and never look back." "Is that what you want?" He poured 3 fingers of amber liquid, downed it in one swallow, then poured another. "What I want and what's good for you are 2 very different things, Maya. Maybe I should decide what's good for me." His laugh was dark, bitter. "You're 23 years old. You've probably never even gotten a speeding ticket. You have no idea what my world looks like, what it requires, what it takes from people. Then tell me." I moved closer, ignoring every instinct screaming at me to keep my distance. "Stop protecting me from the truth and just tell me." He turned, and the rawness in his expression stole my breath. "I hurt people, Maya. I ruin lives. I make decisions that destroy families, end bloodlines, burn everything someone has ever built to ash. Tonight, I watched a man beg for his life while my people held him down. He'd stolen from me, betrayed my trust, and I felt nothing as Marco put a bullet in his head. The words should have terrified me. should have sent me running. But all I could see was the haunted look in his eyes, the way his hands shook slightly as he gripped the glass. You felt something, I said quietly, or you wouldn't be here at 2 a.m., drinking alone in the dark, with blood on your collar. Don't. His voice was sharp, warning. Don't make me into something I'm not. Don't romanticize the monster just because he knows how to be gentle with his daughter. I'm not. I reached out, my fingers brushing the blood-stained fabric. But I'm also not going to pretend that the man who holds Julia like she's made of glass is the same one who pulls the trigger. You're both, Vincent, and maybe that's what terrifies you most. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. You should be terrified of me too. I told you I'm afraid, just not of what you think. Then what? He pulled me closer, his other hand tangling in my hair. What are you afraid of, Maya? Of falling for you, I whispered. Of becoming so entangled in your world that I lose myself, of wanting something I can never truly have because you're you and I'm nobody. His grip tightened. Don't ever call yourself nobody again. Do you understand me? You're everything. The words came out fierce, almost angry. You're the only good thing in my life besides Julia, the only person who looks at me and sees something worth saving. Vincent, I'm obsessed with you. The confession tumbled out like he'd been holding it back for too long. Every night for 6 months I've watched you on that camera, watched you be everything I'm not. Kind, patient, selfless. I've memorized the way you move, the sound of your voice, the exact shade of your hair in the moonlight. I've imagined what it would feel like to touch you, taste you, keep you. His forehead pressed against mine, his breath hot against my lips. I want to lock you away in this house where nothing can hurt you, where you're mine and only mine, and that should scare you, Maya, because I'm not a good man. I don't know how to want things in moderation. My heart was racing so fast I thought it might burst. Then don't. Don't what? Don't moderate it. I rose on my toes, closing the distance between us. Don't pretend to be something you're not. Don't push me away because you think it's what's best for me. The kiss was nothing like the first one. This was consuming, desperate, months of watching and wanting crashing together in a moment of complete surrender. His hands were in my hair, on my waist, pulling me impossibly closer as I gripped his jacket, tasting whiskey and darkness, and something that felt dangerously like salvation. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Vincent's eyes were wild, his carefully maintained control shattered. If you stay, he said, his voice rough, there's no going back. I won't let you go. Can't. I've lost too much already. I won't lose you, too. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. His thumb traced my swollen lower lip. I'll give you everything, Maya. Protection, wealth, anything you could possibly want. But in return, you're mine. Completely. No half measures, no walking away when things get difficult. It was possessive, controlling, every red flag I'd ever been warned about. But looking into his eyes, I saw something else too, desperation, loneliness. A man who'd built walls so high to protect himself that he'd forgotten what it felt like to truly connect with another human being. What about Julia? I asked. She needs stability, Vincent. Not whatever this is between us. She needs both her parents, he corrected. A father who's learning to love her and a mother who already does. The implication made my head spin. I'm not her mother. Aren't you? His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his intense gaze. You've been more of a mother to her than Elena ever was, even when she was alive. Julia lights up when she sees you. She's safe with you, happy, and He swallowed hard. I need you, Maya. Both of us do. Stay. Not as the nanny, but as mine, as ours. You're asking me to give up everything. My freedom, my independence, my whole life. To raise a child who isn't mine in a world I don't understand. Yes. No apology, no softening. Just brutal honesty. I'm asking you to choose this life, choose us, choose me with all my darkness and broken pieces, and in return I'll worship you, protect you, Give you everything I have. I should have said no. Should have recognized this for what it was. A gilded cage, wrapped in passion and promises. But when I thought about leaving, about walking away from Julia's small smiles and Vincent's unexpected gentleness, about returning to my invisible life of cleaning other people's houses and existing in the margins, I couldn't do it. Okay, I whispered. His eyes widened. Okay? Yes. I'll stay. I'll be yours. I reached up to touch his face, feeling the stubble rough against my palm. But you have to promise me something, anything. Promise me you'll keep trying with Julia. That you won't give up on being her father, even when it's hard. Even when you see Elena instead of your daughter. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, that I'd asked for something so simple. I promise. She'll never doubt that she's loved. Not like I did. The vulnerability in those words cracked my heart open. I pulled him down into another kiss, sealing the promise, sealing our fate. When we finally pulled apart, Vincent held me close, his face buried in my hair. I won't let anything happen to you, he murmured. You're under my protection now, my family. Anyone who even thinks about hurting you will answer to me. The possessiveness should have frightened me. Instead, for the first time in 3 years, I felt safe. Even if that safety came wrapped in darkness and blood-stained collars. Even if I'd just signed away my freedom to a man who'd admitted he was obsessed with me. Even if I had no idea what tomorrow would bring. For tonight, in Vincent Moretti's arms, I was seen. I was wanted. I was home. The next morning, everything changed. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the disorienting realization that I wasn't in my small servant's quarters. The bed beneath me was massive, the sheets Egyptian cotton, and the scent of Vincent's cologne clung to the pillow beside me. His bedroom. I was in Vincent Moretti's bedroom. Memory flooded back, the kiss in the kitchen, his confession, my acceptance. After we'd finally pulled apart, he'd insisted I sleep here, in his room, where he could keep me close. I have work to finish, he'd said, brushing my hair back. But I need to know you're here when I'm done. That this wasn't a dream. I'd been too exhausted, too overwhelmed to argue. He'd given me one of his shirts to sleep in, and I'd climbed into his bed while he disappeared into his office down the hall. The last thing I remembered was the sound of his voice through the walls, speaking rapid Italian into a phone, and the unexpected comfort of being surrounded by his scent. Now, in the harsh light of day, reality crashed down. What had I done? The door opened, and Rosa entered carrying a tray. Her eyes widened when she saw me, then carefully neutralized. Good morning, Miss Chen. Mr. Moretti asked me to bring you breakfast. I sat up, pulling the sheets around me self-consciously. Rosa, you don't need to explain anything to me, child. She set the tray on the bedside table. Fresh fruit, pastries, coffee, far more than I'd ever been served before. But I will say this, Vincent Moretti is not an easy man to love. His world is dangerous, and the people in it don't always survive with their souls intact. I know what I'm getting into, I said, though the words felt hollow. Her expression softened. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're a good girl who's about to become the most valuable target in the city. The second word gets out that you matter to him, and it will get out. Every enemy he has will be looking for ways to use you against him. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. I hadn't thought about that. Hadn't considered that loving Vincent meant inheriting his enemies. Where is he? I asked. Downstairs with his men. There was an incident last night. Retaliation from the Calabresi family. 3 of our warehouses were hit. She moved toward the door, then paused. He's had me prepare the room next to his for Julia. The nursery upstairs is being converted into a playroom. He wants his family close now. His family. The word sent a shiver through me. Part fear, part something else I didn't want to examine too closely. After Rosa left, I showered in Vincent's massive bathroom, using his soap, his shampoo, marking myself with his scent. Then I dressed in my own clothes. Simple, practical, nothing that screamed mob boss's girlfriend, and went to find my daughter. Not my daughter, Vincent's daughter. But God help me, Julia felt like mine. I found her in the converted nursery with Vincent, and the sight stopped me in my tracks. He sat on the floor, Vincent Moretti, in a $1,000 suit, sitting cross-legged on a playmat while Julia grabbed at his tie. His expression was soft, unguarded, nothing like the cold mask he showed the world. "You're going to ruin that tie," I said from the doorway. His head snapped up, and the smile that crossed his face was devastating. "I have others." He stood, lifting Julia with him, and crossed to me. "Good morning, cara mia." The endearment in Italian made my heart skip. Before I could respond, he kissed me. Slow, possessive, claiming me in front of the morning light and his infant daughter. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with promise. "I have to leave for a few hours," he said. "Business I can't postpone. Marco and Luca will stay with you. They're your personal security now. You don't leave the estate without them. You don't go anywhere alone. Understood?" The command rankled, but I saw the fear beneath it. "Vincent, please." His hand cupped my face. "I need to know you're safe, both of you." I nodded, and some of the tension left his shoulders. He kissed me again, then Julia's forehead before reluctantly pulling away. "There's something else," he said, reaching into his jacket. He pulled out a small velvet box and my breath caught. This was my grandmother's. She'd want you to have it. He opened the box to reveal a ring. Not an engagement ring, but something more delicate. A band of white gold with small diamonds. Simple, but clearly valuable. "Vincent, I can't." "You can." He slid it onto my right hand, his thumb rubbing the metal into place. "You're part of this family now, Maya. My family. And everyone needs to know it." The weight of the ring felt like a brand. A declaration. A warning to anyone who might think of harming me. After he left, surrounded by armed men and the aura of controlled violence, I tried to fall back into routine. But nothing was routine anymore. Staff members who'd barely acknowledged my existence now treated me with deference. The security detail followed me everywhere, not oppressively, but constantly present. And the ring on my finger caught the light with every movement, a constant reminder that I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. 3 days passed in this strange new normal. Vincent came to us every evening, and we'd become something like a family. He'd hold Julia while I prepared dinner in the main kitchen, his kitchen now, not the staff area. We'd eat together, talk about everything and nothing, and then he'd help me put Julia to bed before pulling me into his arms. The nights were when I learned the truth of Vincent Moretti. When the masks came off and I saw the man beneath, scarred, haunted, desperately trying to be better than his father had been. He told me stories about his childhood, about watching his father rule through fear and violence, about swearing he'd be different, about Elena's betrayal shattering that promise. I became exactly what I hated. He admitted one night, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder as we lay in his bed. Cold. Cruel. Incapable of trust. "You're not incapable," I whispered. "You trust me." His arms tightened around me. "You're different. You're light, Maya. In a world that's been nothing but darkness for so long, you're the only thing that doesn't hurt to look at." I was falling for him, despite the danger, despite the blood on his hands, despite every rational reason to run. I was falling hopelessly, irrevocably in love with Vincent Moretti. And then on the 4th night, everything shattered. I woke to the sound of breaking glass and shouting. Vincent was already moving, pulling on pants, grabbing a gun from the nightstand drawer I hadn't known existed. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice cold and lethal. "Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Marco." "Vincent, what now, Maya?" The fear in his eyes terrified me more than the sounds of violence downstairs. He was gone before I could respond. I locked the door with shaking hands, then ran to the adjoining room where Julia slept. She was stirring, frightened by the noise. I scooped her up, holding her close to my chest, and retreated to the corner farthest from the door. Gunshots. I heard gunshots. Julia began to cry, and I clamped my hand over her mouth, trying to muffle the sound while whispering desperate Portuguese lullabies. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. More shouting. A scream. Male, agonized, then cut off abruptly. Footsteps pounding up the stairs. I pressed myself further into the corner, wishing I had a weapon, wishing I'd listened to Rosa's warnings, wishing I'd never fallen for a man whose world was built on violence. The doorknob rattled. Once. Twice. Then Vincent's voice, tight with urgency. "Maya, it's me. Open the door." I stumbled forward, unlocking it with fumbling fingers. He burst in. Blood splattered across his bare chest, a gun still in his hand. But his eyes found mine immediately, scanning me for injuries with desperate intensity. "Are you hurt?" He crossed to me in 2 strides, his free hand running over me, checking, confirming. "Did anyone touch you?" "No, we're fine." "What happened?" "Calabrese sent a team. 6 men. His jaw clenched. "They're dead now." The casual way he said it should have horrified me. Instead, all I felt was relief that he was alive, that we were safe. "This is my fault," he said, his voice rough. "They came for you. Someone talked. Word got out about you and Julia. They thought they could get to me through you." His hand cupped my face, almost crushing in its intensity. "I won't let that happen again. Do you understand? I won't lose you. Vincent, I'm moving you. Tomorrow. There's a safe house upstate, completely off the grid. You and Julia will stay there with a full security detail until I've handled this. You're sending us away?" Panic clawed at my throat. "I'm protecting you." His thumb brushed away tears I hadn't realized were falling. "The Calabrese family declared war tonight. It's going to get bloody, and I can't fight them if I'm worried about you every second." "Then let me help. No." The word was final. "You're not part of this world, Maya. You're the one good thing I have left, and I won't let it touch you." But it already had. The moment I'd agreed to stay, to be his, I'd become part of his world whether he wanted to admit it or not. Still, I nodded, because the fear in his eyes was too raw to argue with. "How long?" "A week. Maybe 2. However long it takes to end this." He pulled me and Julia into his arms, holding us like we might disappear. "I promise you, Karamia, I'll come back. And when I do, we'll be safe, all of us." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in Vincent's arms, listening to his heartbeat, memorizing the feel of him beside me. Because despite his promises, despite the army of men protecting this house, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to fall apart. And I was right. The next morning, as we prepared to leave for the safe house, Marco burst into the room where I was packing Julia's things. "Boss, we have a problem. It's about Miss Chen." Vincent's expression went carefully blank. "What kind of problem?" Marco's eyes flicked to me, then back to Vincent. "Calabrese doesn't just want her dead. He wants her alive. He's offering $5 million to anyone who brings her to him unharmed." The color drained from Vincent's face. "Why? Because apparently," Marco said slowly, "Elena wasn't just betraying you with your cousin. She was feeding information to the Calabrese family for years. And they think Maya might know where Elena hid the evidence. Account numbers, recordings, documents that could bring down half the families in the city. That's insane," I said. "I never even met Elena. How would I—" "It doesn't matter if it's true." Vincent's voice was dead, hollow. "They believe it. Which means every bounty hunter, every desperate soldier, every enemy I've ever made will be coming for you." He turned to me, and the devastation in his eyes made my knees weak. "I can't protect you here, Maya. I can't protect you anywhere. As long as you're with me, you're a target. And His voice broke. "I can't watch you die. I can't survive losing someone else I love." Love. The word hung between us, precious and poisonous all at once. "So what are you saying?" But I already knew. Could see it in the way he couldn't meet my eyes. "I'm saying I have to let you go." "No." The word ripped from my throat, raw and desperate. "No, Vincent. You can't. I have to." His hands gripped my shoulders, his eyes blazing with barely controlled emotion. "Don't you understand? Keeping you here is killing you. $5 million, Maya. That's enough to make even loyal men consider betrayal. Enough to bring every mercenary on the East Coast to my door. Then we fight." I clutched Julia tighter, my voice rising. "You have an army. You have resources. We can what? Live in hiding forever? Run from safe house to safe house while you look over your shoulder every moment?" His voice cracked. That's not a life. Not for you. Not for Julia. It's better than being without you. The confession hung in the air between us. Vincent's eyes closed, pain etching deep lines around his mouth. When he opened them again, I saw tears threatening to fall. The first time I'd seen him come close to crying. I love you, he said. And the words destroyed me. I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anything, and that's exactly why I have to do this. Because love means protecting you, even from myself. You're not protecting me. You're abandoning me. Abandoning us. I looked down at Julia, who was watching her father with wide, innocent eyes. She needs you, Vincent. We both do. She needs to be alive more. He reached out, his hand trembling as it cupped Julia's head. You both do. And I can't guarantee that if you stay. Marco cleared his throat from the doorway. Boss, we need to move. Calabresi's men were spotted 2 miles from the perimeter. Vincent's jaw clenched. He turned to Marco, and when he spoke, his voice was pure command. Get them out. Use the south exit. Take the unmarked van. Drive them to the airport. I have a plane waiting. New identities. New location. Somewhere Calabresi will never find them. Vincent! Please. I was begging now, tears streaming down my face. Don't do this. Don't make me leave. He pulled me into his arms one last time, crushing me and Julia against his chest. I felt his heart racing, felt the tremor in his hands as they held us. When he spoke, his voice was muffled against my hair. In another life, Maya, we could have been happy. In another life, I would have been a better man, the kind who could give you a normal life, a safe life. But in this life, all I can give you is a chance to survive. He pulled back, his hands framing my face, thumbs brushing away my tears. So, take it. Please. Take Julia and go somewhere beautiful. Raise her to be good and kind like you. Tell her about her father when she's old enough to understand. Tell her I loved her. Tell her I loved you both enough to let you go. I won't forgive you for this, I whispered. Good. His smile was broken, devastated. Remember me with anger. It's easier than grief. He kissed me then, deep, desperate, tasting of salt and goodbye. When he pulled away, he pressed something into my palm, a phone. Encrypted, untraceable. If you ever need anything at all, call the only number programmed in there. Money will appear wherever you need it, protection if someone finds you. I'll move heaven and earth to keep you safe, Maya, even if I can't be there to do it myself. Marco stepped forward. Boss, we're out of time. Vincent kissed Julia's forehead, his eyes closing as he breathed in her baby scent one last time. Papa loves you, Piccola. Never forget that. Then he was stepping back, physically tearing himself away from us. His face was a mask of anguish, and I realized with stunning clarity that this was killing him just as surely as it was killing me. Go, he said, now, before I change my mind and damn us all. Marco's hand on my elbow was gentle but insistent. I let him guide me from the room, down the servants' stairs, through corridors I'd walked 100 times before. Each step felt like dying. Each breath hurt. At the south exit, Luca waited by an unmarked van. He took my bag without a word, his expression carefully neutral. But I saw the tightness around his eyes, the way he wouldn't quite meet my gaze. Even Vincent's most loyal men knew this was wrong. As Marco helped me into the van, I looked back at the house one last time. Vincent stood at his bedroom window, a dark silhouette against the light. Even from this distance, I could see the rigid set of his shoulders, the way his hand pressed against the glass. I raised my hand, a gesture of goodbye, of forgiveness, of love that wouldn't die just because we were being torn apart. He didn't wave back. He just stood there, watching, as the van pulled away, and the only home I'd known for 6 months disappeared behind walls and gates and distance. 3 months. That's how long I lasted before I broke. Marco had delivered us to a small coastal town in Portugal, a cruel irony that wasn't lost on me. The language of my grandmother's lullabies surrounded me now, spoken by strangers who smiled at Julia in the market and asked about her beautiful dark eyes. Her father's eyes, I'd say, and feel my heart crack open all over again. The house Vincent had arranged was beautiful, a whitewashed cottage overlooking the Atlantic, with gardens full of flowers and rooms filled with everything a baby could need. Money appeared in my account like clockwork. An encrypted message came once a week. A single word. Safe. That's all. Just safe. Confirmation that Vincent was alive, that the war with Calabrese continued, that he was still out there fighting battles I wasn't allowed to help with. I hated him for it. Hated him for sending us away. For making decisions about my life without my consent. For loving me enough to break both our hearts. But I also understood, because every time I looked at Julia, 9 months old now, starting to pull herself up on furniture and babble in sounds that almost resembled words, I knew I'd do anything to keep her safe too, even if it meant living in this beautiful prison, surrounded by ocean and loneliness, and the ghost of what we could have been. It was Rosa who finally found me. I came home from the market one afternoon to find her sitting on my porch, looking older than I remembered, but with the same sharp, knowing eyes. "He's dying," she said without preamble. The groceries fell from my hands, oranges rolling across the cobblestones. "What?" "Not literally, not yet." She stood, moving toward me with surprising quickness for a woman her age. "But he might as well be. The war ended 6 weeks ago. Vincent won, destroyed the Calabrese family completely. But he's been drinking himself to death ever since. Won't eat, barely sleeps. Just sits in that house, staring at the cameras in the nursery, like he can will you back into existence." My heart twisted. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're both idiots." She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "He sent you away to protect you, and you stayed away to respect his wishes. But the threat is gone, Maya, has been for weeks. And he's too stubborn and broken to call you back, and you're too hurt to reach out first, so someone needed to intervene. Rosa. That man loves you more than life itself, and that baby deserves her father. So you're going to get on a plane tomorrow, fly back to New York and fix this. Or I swear to God, I'll drag you both back by your ears myself." The estate looked the same. Same high walls, same guards at the gate, though they looked surprised to see me, their hands immediately moving to phones and radios to report my arrival. Same marble floors that echoed with my footsteps as I carried Julia through the front door. But something was different. The house felt dead, empty in a way that had nothing to do with the number of people present. I found Vincent in his office, exactly where Rosa said he'd be. The curtains were drawn, the room dim despite the afternoon sun outside. Empty whiskey bottles littered the desk, and papers covered every surface, business documents, surveillance photos, and in the center of it all, a printed photograph of me and Julia in Portugal. He'd been watching us, still protecting us from thousands of miles away. He didn't notice me at first. He sat slumped in his chair, staring at nothing, his face gaunt and shadowed with beard growth. He'd lost weight. His suit hung loose on his frame, and his eyes, God, his eyes looked dead. Vincent. His head snapped up, and for a moment I saw everything flash across his face. Disbelief, hope, fear, joy, before he could lock it down. He stood so quickly his chair fell backward, his hands gripping the desk like he needed the support. "You're not real," he said hoarsely. "You're not. This is another hallucination. The whiskey. I'm real." I stepped further into the room, and Julia chose that moment to squeal, reaching her arms toward her father with the universal gesture of a baby who wanted to be held. Vincent's face crumbled. "Maya, you can't be here. It's not safe. Calabrese is dead. His whole family is either dead or in prison," Rosa told me. I moved closer, my heart breaking at how destroyed he looked. "The threat is gone, Vincent. Has been for weeks. So why didn't you call us home?" "Because..." His voice broke. He ran shaking hands through his hair, and I realized he was on the edge of falling apart completely. "Because I didn't deserve you back. Because I sent you away, made you cry, broke every promise I made. Because even with Calabrese gone, there will always be another threat. My world is darkness, Maya. It will always be darkness. And you..." He looked at me like I was the sun itself. "You deserve light. What I deserve," I said quietly, "is a choice. You made all the decisions last time, Vincent. You decided what was best for me, for Julia. You decided we needed to leave. You decided to suffer alone, rather than fight for us. I closed the distance between us, Julia still in my arms. So now I'm making a decision. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing this life, with all its darkness and danger. I'm choosing us. You're insane. But hope was creeping into his voice, tentative and fragile. You should run from me, hate me. I sent you away to protect us. I know, and I spent 3 months hating you for it. I reached up, my free hand cupping his face, feeling the hollow of his cheek beneath my palm. But I also spent 3 months loving you, missing you, wanting to kill you and kiss you and scream at you all at once. So here I am, Vincent. I'm back. And unless you physically throw me out, I'm staying. His hand came up to cover mine, pressing it harder against his face like he needed the contact to believe I was real. I don't deserve you. Probably not. I smiled through my tears, but you're stuck with me anyway. He moved then, fast, desperate, crushing me and Julia against his chest. His whole body shook with the force of emotions he'd been holding back, and I felt wetness against my neck. Vincent Moretti was crying, the man who faced down enemies without flinching, who dealt in death and violence, was sobbing into my hair like a broken child. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought... Shh. I held him tighter. Julia squeezed safely between us. I know. I understand. But we're here now. We're home. Home, he repeated, like testing the word. His hands came up to frame my face, thumbs brushing away my own tears. Say you'll stay. Promise me. Promise you won't leave again. I promise. I whispered. But you have to promise me something too. Anything. Promise me no more secrets. No more making decisions for me to protect me. We face things together from now on. As partners. As family. As family, he agreed. Then his eyes dropped to Julia, who was babbling happily, completely oblivious to the emotional reunion happening around her. Julia, mia figlia. Did you miss Papa? She reached for him, and he took her with shaking hands, holding her close and breathing her in. The look on his face, pure love mixed with regret and determination, told me everything would be different now. She learned to wave, I said softly, and she's almost walking. You missed so much. Never again. It was a vow. I'll never miss another moment. I swear it. That night, after Julia was asleep in the nursery that had been converted back from a playroom, because Vincent wanted his daughter close, wanted his family under one roof where he could protect us, we lay tangled together in his bed. Marry me, he said suddenly. I lifted my head from his chest. What? Marry me. He shifted, reaching into the nightstand drawer and pulling out a small velvet box. I bought this 2 days after you left. Been carrying it around like a talisman, hoping I'd get the chance to give it to you. He opened it, revealing a ring that took my breath away, a single diamond, elegant and simple. Exactly what I would have chosen. I know I'm damaged. I know my world is dangerous. I know I don't deserve you. But I love you, Maya. And I want the whole world to know you're mine. That we're a family. So please, cara mia, marry me. I looked at the ring, at the man offering it, at the life he was promising. It wasn't normal. It would never be safe. There would always be threats, always be danger lurking at the edges of our happiness, but it was ours. Yes, I said. Yes, I'll marry you. The smile that broke across his face was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. He slid the ring onto my finger, next to his grandmother's band, which I'd never taken off, and kissed me like a man who'd been given a second chance at salvation. I'll spend the rest of my life making you happy, he promised against my lips. I'll be the father Julia deserves, the husband you deserve. I'll be better. I swear it. I know you will. I pulled him closer, sealing the promise with a kiss. We both will. Together. 6 months later, I stood in the gardens of the estate, wearing a simple white dress, and married Vincent Moretti surrounded by flowers and family. Rosa crying openly, Marco and Luca standing as witnesses, and Julia in Rosa's arms, clapping her tiny hands in delight. It wasn't a traditional wedding. There were armed guards at every entrance, security measures that would make a military installation jealous, and half the guests were men with dangerous reputations and blood on their hands. But when Vincent slipped the wedding band onto my finger and promised to love me until his last breath, I knew I'd made the right choice. Because sometimes love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who looks at you like you're worth fighting for, worth changing for, worth building a life around, even when that life is complicated and dangerous and nothing like what you'd imagined. Vincent Moretti had hidden a camera in the nursery to keep his daughter safe. What he'd found instead was a reason to be more than the cold, broken man his past had created, and I'd found something too, a home, a family, and a love fierce enough to survive anything the world threw at us. As we danced under the stars, Julia sleeping peacefully inside while guards watched the perimeter, Vincent held me close and whispered, "Thank you." For what? For coming back, for choosing me, for teaching me how to love again. He kissed my forehead, and I felt the truth of his words in the steady beat of his heart, for being the light in all my darkness. I smiled against his chest, watching the moon rise over the walls that surrounded our beautiful, dangerous, perfect life. "Always," I whispered back. "I'll always choose you." And I meant it, because Vincent Moretti had seen me at 3 a.m. singing lullabies to a baby who wasn't mine, and he'd fallen in love with the woman he saw. And I'd seen past the monster everyone feared, found the man beneath, and fallen just as hard. Together, we were home. Finally, completely, irrevocably home.